The wealthiest person in the room is almost never the one who looks like it. The wealthiest person rarely looks the part. The billionaire in worn sneakers, the millionaire driving a 12-year-old car, the hedge fund manager who shops at the same grocery store as you. These aren't accidents. This is strategy. Hiding wealth on purpose. And there's a reason behind it that no one is talking about. A psychological decision so deliberate, so calculated, that once you understand it, you will never look at money or status the same way again. I'll tell you exactly what that reason is before this video ends, but I promise you, it is not what you think. This video didn't appear in your feed by accident. Stay to the final minute. You were meant to understand this. By the end of this video, you'll know why the most financially free people on earth actively choose to look ordinary, and why that single decision might be the smartest move in the entire wealth playbook. Let's begin with something that sounds almost backward. In a culture obsessed with showing off success, the wealthiest people alive are doing the opposite, going out of their way to look like they don't have much, not carelessly, not humbly, strategically. Look broke, stay free. Think about what happens the moment people know you have money. Everything shifts. Strangers treat you differently. Family dynamics change. Even the way businesses and contractors price their work adjusts the second they know what you're worth. Visible wealth is not a bank account, it's a target. So the smart ones developed a counter strategy. They learned that invisibility is worth more than admiration, that looking ordinary is a kind of freedom no luxury item can buy. This isn't a modern phenomenon, and the psychology behind it runs much deeper than most people expect. But before we go deeper, we need to talk about the very first tax that visible wealth forces you to pay. And it's not the kind the government collects. The moment people know you have money, you start paying what psychologists call a social tax. Not in dollars, in energy, in relationships, in peace of mind. Suddenly, everyone needs something from you. The cousin who needs rent, the old friend with a business idea that needs funding, the coworker who needs a loan, dressed up as reconnecting. And if you say no, you become the villain. If you say yes, you become the ATM. This isn't theoretical. Research on lottery winners consistently shows the majority who publicly announce their winnings are financially and socially devastated within 5 years. Drained by people they knew and people they had never met. Visible wealth turns generosity into a performance. The quiet wealthy figured this out, and they made a simple decision. It is far cheaper to look ordinary than to spend your life defending what you've built. If this is shifting how you see money and status, hit like and subscribe to keep reprogramming your wealth mindset. We've barely scratched the surface, but the social tax has a twin, and the twin is even more relentless. We'll get to it next. Here's a truth so simple it's almost funny. Nobody asks a broke person for money. Nobody. When you look like you're just getting by, the requests stop. The invitations to fund questionable businesses disappear. The cousins go quiet. The old classmates stop calling, not because they stopped needing help, but because you stopped looking like a resource. It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor. Seneca understood this centuries ago. True freedom comes when you step outside the role of provider, banker, fixer. The wealthy who live below their visible means aren't being stingy. They are protecting their relationships from what money does to them. Acting broke is the ultimate boundary without saying a word. You never have to say no because nobody ever asks. The boundary is invisible, which means it never creates conflict. But the protection goes even further, because it's not just people who change their behavior around visible wealth. It's every contractor, vendor, and service provider you deal with, and that difference adds up to real money. Economists call it price discrimination, charging different customers different prices for the same service based on their perceived ability to pay. Institutions do it systematically. Individuals do it instinctively. The moment a contractor sees you pull up in a luxury car, the quote goes up. The moment a vendor learns your address, the estimate shifts. The moment a negotiator suspects you can afford it, their floor price rises. This is not a conspiracy. It's human nature. People price to the wallet they perceive. Looking rich costs you money. Smart, wealthy people negotiate their biggest deals in old clothes. They drive modest cars to contractor meetings, not out of false modesty, out of pure strategy. Dressing down at the negotiating table is a financial weapon. When you look like you don't have much, sellers try to attract your business. When you look like you have everything, they try to extract it. But here's where it gets truly psychological, because the real damage of visible wealth isn't financial, it's social, and it goes by one name. Human beings have a complicated relationship with other people's success. We celebrate the billionaire on television, but but we resent the neighbor who drives a better car. Psychologists call this social comparison theory. We don't measure ourselves against people vastly different from us. We compare to people in our immediate circle. Proximity turns admiration into envy. And when someone nearby visibly exceeds us, evolution triggers something deep inside: threat detection. Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. Jung mapped this through the shadow, the part of us that cannot tolerate another's visible success without internally diminishing either them or ourselves. Visible wealth in a close community doesn't just attract requests, it attracts quiet hostility. The jokes that aren't quite jokes, the comments about luck, the slow distance that grows where warmth once lived. The rich go invisible to avoid becoming a target. The quiet millionaire who lives nearby, drives an average car, shops at the same grocery store, never activates that threat response. They remain human, relatable, safe. And that safety translates into something the loudly wealthy can never buy. But what exactly is it? The answer changes everything. Here's what nobody in the financial space will say directly. The purpose of real wealth, for those who truly understand it, is not the lifestyle. It's the freedom. Freedom. Not freedom to buy things. Freedom from things. Freedom from obligations, from scrutiny, from the expectations that come with visible success. And here's the brutal irony. The louder you display your wealth, the less free you actually become. The visible mansion has to be maintained, insured, defended socially. The luxury car worried over in every parking lot. Every visible marker of wealth carries an invisible cost. Showing off is a cage. Perceived poverty buys more freedom than visible wealth ever could. The billionaire in flip-flops, the tech founder in a decade-old Honda, the hedge fund manager in a middle-class neighborhood. These aren't quirks. These are people who decoded something most never will. True wealth is invisible, and the wealthiest people in the world have chosen invisibility, on purpose, with deliberate intention, and with something that looks a lot like relief. But is this actually documented, or just anecdote? The research here will genuinely surprise you. In 1996, Thomas Stanley and William Danko published a study that quietly changed how we understand wealth. They spent decades interviewing actual millionaires, not celebrities or influencers. The real ones living in ordinary neighborhoods, driving ordinary cars, wearing ordinary clothes. They called them prodigious accumulators of wealth. And the most striking finding: the average millionaire drives a used car and lives in a house worth less than their annual income. Invisible by design, wealth not performed, protected. Meanwhile, they found another group. High earners spending everything performing wealth. The leased luxury car, the expensive neighborhood, the designer wardrobe. They looked rich. They were poor. Looking rich and being rich are often complete opposites. The Millionaire Next Door became one of the most important financial books ever written, precisely because it exposed this inversion. The people who look like money often don't have it. The people who have it often don't look like it. This isn't a minor finding. It's a fundamental truth about how wealth is built and kept in the real world. But there's a layer even deeper than strategy. Something about identity itself, about who you become when you strip the performance away. Here's something fascinating about the wealthy who choose invisibility. They've separated their identity from their net worth. And that separation is more powerful than any investment strategy. Most people do the opposite. They tie self-worth to what they own, what they drive, what they wear. The visible markers of success become the identity itself. Remove them, and you remove the person. When your wealth becomes your identity, losing it destroys you. This is why lottery winners go broke, why athletes who made fortunes end up bankrupt. Their identity was the performance of wealth. When the performance stopped, the money followed. Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. Epictetus understood that the internal relationship to wealth, not its display, is where real financial security lies. The wealthy who act broke have done something profound. They've made their money invisible, so their character can be seen. When people interact with them, they're connecting with a person, not a financial resource. The relationship is real. The connection is grounded in something that can't be extracted. But we still haven't hit the most powerful reason, the one that ties everything together. And when you hear it, it might just change the way you see yourself. Here's where it gets uncomfortable, and I need you to stay with me. Acting broke is not just a strategy rich people use to protect their money. At the deepest level, it's a mirror, and most of us won't like what we see in it. Mirror, because here's the real question. Why do most people display wealth at all? Why the watch, the car, the clothes? Not to enjoy them, but to be seen enjoying them, to prove something, to claim a status, to tell a story about who they are to people who will mostly forget them by tomorrow. Displaying wealth is really fear. The economist Thorstein Veblen named this in 1899 conspicuous consumption. We buy things not for utility, but for visibility, to communicate rank, to armor ourselves against feelings of inadequacy. The rich who act broke have transcended this. They don't need the armor because they've dealt with what the armor was hiding. The need to look rich is a symptom of feeling poor inside. True wealth begins as an internal shift, not a bank balance, a belief. If this reached something real in you, share this video with as many people as you possibly can. This truth needs to travel far. Most people will never hear it. If you think acting broke is genius or insane, comment your answer. I want to know. Because what comes next finally answers the question I asked at the very beginning, and it changes everything. Remember the question from the very beginning: why would someone with everything pretend to have nothing? I told you the answer wasn't what you expected. Here it is. The real reason the wealthy hide isn't protection, it's selection. When you perform wealth, you attract people drawn to wealth, contractors who overcharge, friends who borrow, partners who see a resource. Every relationship is filtered through what you have. When you perform ordinariness, something entirely different happens. You attract people who see you, not your net worth. The connections that form are real. The friendships are genuine. The people who stay are there because of who you are, not what you own. The most luxurious possession anyone has is their personal dignity. Acting broke is not humility theater. It's a sophisticated filter, a way of selecting quality over quantity in every dimension of life. Relationships, business, peace, and above all, freedom. True wealth needs no audience. When you stop needing to be seen as rich, you become truly free. The wealthiest people in the world figured this out. The real prize was never the car, the house, or the watch. It was the invisible, unbothered, unannounced freedom that arrives when your worth stops being something you need to prove. Now you know. The question is, what will you do with it? You came in thinking rich people act broke out of paranoia or eccentricity. Now you see it for what it truly is, a masterclass in psychological freedom. Poverty as armor is genius. Perceived poverty buys what no amount of visible wealth ever could: freedom from obligation, from resentment, from extraction, from performance. The most powerful financial move isn't accumulating more, it's learning to need less. Specifically, less validation from others about what you have. He is richest who is content with the least. This is the quiet revolution happening among the truly wealthy. Not a revolution of spending or investing, but of identity, of separating who you are from what you own. The day you stop needing to prove you're rich is the day you become truly free. If you made it this far, comment "invisible rich" to prove you understand what most people will never see. Your mind is either programmed for wealth or poverty. Now you know how to reprogram it.